Hello, my name is Thomas Shepherd and I'm here representing Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, and I'm here to present my paper on a pilot study of Irish student-teacher perspectives on the innovative employment of formative instructional practices, or FIP, in school placement. Now, the nature of this presentation is based upon a partnership program that we established between GMIT and an American partner, Patel for Kids. So really it's about on an evaluative study on the nature of that partnership program. So I'm here representing the college, but I'm also here on behalf of my colleagues Pauline Lowe Collins and Karina Ginty. So we're going to first of all begin by just having a look at the presentation structure. So it's going to be based on three parts. The first part is just going to be an introduction into the partners themselves, so GMIT and Patel for Kids, and the next then is going to be on the study itself, so the aims of the study, the results and the conclusions drawn from that. And then lastly we're going to finish up with an interactive exchange, which is just a brief exchange, just trying to get people thinking about some of the concepts that the partnership is based upon. So first of all, let's begin by just looking at the two partners. So I'm going to take each partner individually first of all, and then I'm going to look at the establishment of the collaboration. So to first of all begin with GMIT, for those of you not familiar with the island of Ireland, Ireland is a little bit like a teddy bear sitting out in the Atlantic Ocean. So if you can imagine, Dublin is on the east coast and then Galway City is on the west coast, directly opposite. So it's in Galway City where our main campus for GMIT is based. But where we're going to go is a little bit further afield. If you imagine getting in your car and driving right out to the west, a part of the country known as Connemara, we have Letterfrack, which is a village, and that's where our Letterfrack campus is based. So that's where our student teachers are educated. So it's in Letterfrack where this study basically is established. So just a quick note about Letterfrack. Letterfrack is a national centre for excellence in the area of furniture design and technology, and we have three programs running there. So that of furniture design and manufacture, furniture and wood technology, and design and technology education, which is our teacher education program. So our teachers off of that program will be qualified to teach four subjects. So that of materials and technology, wood. So for those of you not from Ireland, maybe that might be comparable to design and technology or wood shop. They're also qualified to teach technical graphics, and then at senior cycle, design and communication graphics and construction studies. But one of the things that links all the courses within Letterfrack is that there's a real emphasis on the idea of creativity and innovation in all they do, both from a staff perspective and from a student perspective. So just a quick look at the college itself. You can see it's quite a small campus, but in spite of being a small campus, we really pride ourselves on being up to date technologically. So whether that's the buildings themselves, or whether it's the programs that the students learn to use, parametric modelling, whether it's the bench rooms with CNC technology, whether it's the teaching environment, so using things like data projectors, visualizers, the likes of the interactive whiteboards, developing online content, say through websites and that. We try to really keep the students up to date with the modern practices. Likewise, we can see here just a couple of samples of some projects that students have produced, and you can see again the whole idea of innovation and creativity coming through. So that's again one of the real goals that we have within the college. So that's just a brief view of GMIT Letterfrack. Next I want to look at our partners in this, Patel for Kids. So Patel for Kids, they're an Ohio-based not-for-profit or educational organisation, and they're basically focused on three main goals: that of empowering teachers, developing leaders, and improving school systems. So that's quite an aspirational goal, really. So how they go about doing that then is through promotion of a method called formative instructional practices, or FIP. Now in Ireland and throughout Europe this may be known as, say, assessment for learning, or that would be the most closely related strategy. So assessment for learning is what we would know that as in Ireland, or what that would be called in Ireland. The FIPS practice prioritises a couple of key things: formative instructional feedback, learning targets, student-centred active learning strategies, student choice and ownership of learning, and then hope strategies. And I'm sure a lot of the educationalists here, will look at that and they'll say, well, they would be concepts that would be quite familiar to a lot of people. So that really leads us on to, I suppose, the question, what's new about this, or what is it that Patel are offer that's different? to what we would have seen before. So just looking at a couple of the differences, first of all, if you take each individual components, one of the things that Patel or the Patel program is very good at is combining them all together and really showing the links between each of the individual components. And it does this through linking them all to a central concept of hope, or how to instill hope within the classroom. And that becomes really the driving question when it comes to each aspect of the lesson. How do I instill hope within this lesson? So if you take, for example, if you're creating your aims or your learning targets for the lesson, have you got a learning target for every student? How do you instill hope through your planning? Is there a learning target that's achievable for every student, even if it's a weak student? Does he have a target that will help him to kind of see the class in a more positive light? Likewise, when it comes to, say, take for example, formative feedback, even down to the language that you use, is it positive language? Is the language that you use capable of instilling hope within the students? So these are all examples of how all of our different components can be tied together through the medium of hope. And it was one of the things that we really at GMIT, we really liked that idea of instilling hope, and it really fitted with our own approach to education. So that's one of the things that Patel really promote. How they actually go about doing it primarily is through an interactive online resource website. And there's a series of modules that students can engage in. So it's very useful from a flipped classroom type of learning environment. And you can see here we have a number of different modules that students can register for, log in, and they can do it at their own leisure. So they can dip in and out of it in a very convenient way. Likewise, the information on the website, it's very much expandable, so the students can look through it and get the general idea initially, but they can always go back to it, and there's further links and more information available to them. So even as a repository of information, it's very, very good, and it allows the student to really get as much from it as they want. So that's the actual main website itself. Even looking at the content itself is very much classroom focused, whether it's videos of teachers talking about their own experience of it, or implementing strategies within their own classroom, and tips and kind of essentially strategies that work in the classroom. So it's very much a classroom focus, and from a student-teacher perspective, that's exactly what we find that they want. They want to see this at play in the classroom itself. Another thing that Patel offer is a student engagement survey, which is an online survey that teachers can use with their own pupils. And I might just maybe clarify this point, that often when I refer to students, I'm referring to student teachers, and when I refer to pupils, I'm referring to second level pupils. So the student engagement survey is actually for the pupils in the schools. The teacher is able to give it to their own pupils, and it's able to inform the teacher about how the actual practices are getting on. So it really empowers the teacher to see, do they need to make any changes to any of the practices that they're adopting? Are they achieving with that? Or does it need to be changed, or does it need to be adapted for the classroom itself? So it really does, as I say, it empowers the teacher. So that's the student engagement survey. So that's just an idea of what Patel is about. So how this actual study came about was in 2014-2015 academic year, 2 of our GMIT staff members travelled over to Ohio and trained in these FIP strategies. And it was really a positive experience. Both staff members came back very much invigorated. They really liked what they saw, and they felt that it linked very well with our own ethos in GMIT. So it was decided that in the 2015-2016 academic year, we were going to try and model these within our professional studies module within the college itself. So that's how the study came about. So what I want to do then is move on to the research partnership itself and the aims and results from the study. So beginning, first of all, we'll just look at how it was adopted into the GMIT program. So a small-scale pilot study was done with our 4th year group, and it was implemented in 2 modules, that of professional studies, where the students would have undergone the various modules as part of the Patel package, and then in school placement, where the students would have to implement the new learning that they would have gotten from the modules. So you can see there that the students completed 2 certified online BFK modules. So that was modules 1 and 7. So they were the modules on the introduction to FIP strategies and the module on leadership. So they would have done that in professional studies before going out on school placement, and then they would have implemented it while out on their school placement. So that was the nature of the study itself. The aims of the study then were to establish whether FIP strategies enhanced innovation and creativity. As we said before, they're the kind of real key goals that we have in GMIT Letterfrack. So we wanted to see, did the Patel ethos, did it fit with our own aims and our own goals? Then to establish if FIP strategies led to a more hope-filled learning experience for pupils. So because I suppose the real key goal of the Patel is to create this more hope-filled environment, we want to see, well, did that actually play out for our own students on placement? And then lastly then, to investigate whether there is enhanced pupil learning / engagement as a result of the FIP strategy. So did the students actually learn more as a result of it? So with those aims in mind, we established the study itself, which is based on a qualitative framework, an action research study then, which involved a number of different aspects. The first aspect there was the student-teacher online forum reflection. So just to give a bit of context there with that, our students, when they're out on placement each week, they'll be given a topic for discussion, which they have to post as part of our virtual online environment, or Moodle. So each week they'll be given a topic and they will post up their comments relating it to research, relating the classroom to the research in the area. So basically, one of the weeks, the topic for discussion was the FIP strategies and their adoption of it, and how they found that they were getting on, adopting the strategies, giving examples and giving comments then on how they felt it was working. So then the second aspect was when they returned from school placement was to have a whole class focus group. So that was a semi-structured class discussion with the lecturer responsible for professional studies. So that's Pauline Lowe Collins. And then lastly, the aim was to get the students to conduct the student engagement survey with their own pupils. Now there were some issues with the adoption of this, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So, but that's the general methodology. So it was meant to be a 3-point approach to it, where we could, get general information and then really probe it further. So, having a look then at the results of it, once the students had completed their reflections, say as part of their school placement, what we do is we took those reflections and we were able to apply a thematic analysis to it. So we were trying to extract the key themes that were evident within their comments and break them down into further sub-themes. So each theme was given a code. So you can see the main themes here: innovation, creativity, hope strategies, student engagement, and enhancement for student learning. And our sub-categories then trying to add clarity to that. So and here we have our code, and here we have our frequency. So a manual letter and numerical coding system was used. And let's just look at the results from that there. So you can see the dominant themes here. By far and away, hope strategies was definitely the dominant theme. Which is a really positive thing, I suppose, from a student perspective. That they actually did see, these hope strategies working within the classroom itself. We can see then innovation, creativity was next in line, so that the students found that through the FIP strategies and through using the Patel program, that it did help them to become more innovative and creative on their placement. And then, but tied here is enhancement for student learning and student engagement. So let's just have a brief look at the breakdown of each of these individual themes. So we won't have enough time to go through every single one, but just looking at some of the key ones. So first of all, starting with hope strategies, you can see by far and away the biggest of our sub-themes here was positive learning climate. So bear in mind there was 15 students, so almost all students commented that the adoption of the FIP strategies did help to increase the learning climate within the classroom, which is a very, very positive result from our perspective. So they did feel that the approaching each lesson with hope in mind did actually have a positive result in class, and in particular it helped the students empathize with their own pupils. So that was a very positive outcome from that. Looking then at, say, the critical reflection, there's quite a variety of things here, but one of the things that we feedback from the students was that they really found the Patel program very good as a repository of information to give them ideas and how they could be innovative and creative. And what was more, that we found a lot of the students, not only would they take the basic idea, but they would tailor them to their own needs, so that they would start off with the general idea, but then they would look at it and then further adapt it to meet their own classroom. So you can see there's quite a variety there. Surveying was one of the key things that they found that they were able to take from that. Use of exit cards, learning ladders, and so on. So that was their innovation and creativity, that the students felt that it gave them a good footing to develop this innovation and creativity, strategies that they felt they may not have otherwise done. Looking at enhancement for student learning, we can see there that, again, the main areas here: empathy and insight into student perspective. So in some ways that will link back to the hope strategies, that they felt that when you start the lesson saying, how do I instill hope, you're automatically putting the focus away from yourself and just the content that you want to get across, and to say, well, look, what will the student themselves, how will they engage with this? So that was enhancement for student learning. And then in terms of engagement, then we can see two main things here: linking with classroom management. So because they found this positive classroom climate, that would directly impact the classroom management of the lesson. And likewise, peer assessment, and again, another strategy that they felt that they were able to use, or more comfortable with using, having seen it modelled within the Patel program. So they're just some of the results from the initial virtual learning environment, say the Moodle reflections. This is from placement. So when the students came back, then we conducted our semi-structured interview with the students. So this was to really clarify some of the themes that we would have established from the initial reflections. So just looking at a couple of the questions and some of the answers, it can shed some light on some of that earlier information. So in answer to the question, did BFK modelling prior to SP have any effect on your use? We can see there a typical student answer. The first few times you're using them for the sake of it. This is something that you're told, look, it's just part and parcel. It's the next thing that the students have to do. But then the more you realise that it actually works, the more you make them more specific. So and it was a comment on how the students liked seeing what they're doing. So the idea of having general aims or learning targets, was working very well. So, again, the students started it just for the sake of it, because it was another thing to be done while out in school placement, something expected of them. But they found that they actually did find that it was a benefit to their class. Another student commented on how it actually made writing their lesson plans easier. You set your learning targets as a chunk of your activities, you knew what you were going to hit, and you made them think of how you're going to hit it. And it was actually one of the things, in comparison to the traditional approach of learning aims and outcomes, the idea of a learning target, because this was something you were sharing with the students, we found our student teachers didn't get as hung up on the language associated with it, the verbs, and you're making sure is the verbiage right for an aim, appropriate for an aim and for an output. So they really just focused in on the actual content itself, and they really felt that was quite liberating. And even though both essentially are quite similar, just the way it was packaged differently, they really saw the sense of it, which is again a very positive thing. To the question, was BFK a benefit? We can see here students reply, it's a source of new ideas. So again, as a repository for new ideas, when you try something out, it's not said it will work properly first time every time, but you can experiment with it, and it works well, you can move on with it. So they had a very practical approach. They took a lot of the ideas and they said, well, okay, this is what it looks like in the classroom, try it out. And they took a very light approach to it. Said that it wasn't a case that it had to work first time, but they were willing to experiment with it. And then you can see it makes you think about a more student-centered approach. You'd be doing a lot of it, but you're actually thinking about it more so, and thinking about the students. And again, this idea of empathy and empathizing with the students and the student experience. The BFK made it sound simple, and that was definitely one of the great advantages of the BFK model. It links all the things together, but with the idea of hope as its core central aim, it really does make a lot of sense to the students. They see, okay, well, look, if we've got this common lens of a hope strategy, infiltrating all aspects of the lesson, well, it does help make a bit more sense out of it. So next we want to look at, would you leave the learning targets behind you, or would you take them forward into your teaching? So the learning targets for the last day helped build up the learning targets for class. Teacher writes up learning targets with the help of the pupils. So this idea of a democratic classroom, you're engaging the students, you're getting the students themselves to give their opinion. So something that, again, really helps create this empathy for the students. The students can see that you're on their side. I think probably one of the, a really positive comment was the last comment here, said, no, they're one of the more simple things that you can take away with you after college, and it works. Often we wonder, when students are learning, say, their education, within their education extras, will they go and carry everything out when they leave, and I suppose the proof of the pudding is, that if they say, look, this is something that works, it's something that you would actually carry with you, and that's really a positive thing. And then lastly then, the survey. There was some issues in relation to the survey. Because it's an online survey, the students out on school placement found that some students couldn't get access to the computer room or couldn't get access to tablets to run the survey. So there was a bit of an issue getting consistency with all students to run the survey. So because of that, the information that was coming back, it couldn't really say that it was definitive, because some students weren't able to conduct it and other students were, and some students wouldn't have been able to conduct it throughout the entire placement. It was an area that we had to actually park at the time and say, look, it's something we will have to approach again. So we couldn't actually draw any conclusions on the basis of the student engagement survey. So if we just look at the results then in relation to the aims that we set out, we can draw conclusions from that. So first of all, to establish whether FIP strategies enhanced innovation and creativity in teaching. Well, you can see there from both the themes that we were able to get from the reflections and from the comments and the semi-structured interview, we said that there was significant evidence that the FIP strategies did actually enhance innovation and creativity, both from a viewpoint of creating a greater increase in empathy, and also from the point of view of as a repository of information and being able to link all the different aspects together. So yeah, it definitely did have a positive enhancement on innovation and creativity. Second aim there was to establish if FIP strategies led to a more hope-filled learning experience. Well, again, back from the thematic analysis, the biggest comment of any of them was the creation of this positive learning environment. So that could be directly linked towards this idea of putting hope at the center of the classroom. And then our last aim was to investigate whether there was enhanced pupil learning engagement as a result of FIP. Well, because we weren't able to really get definitive results from the student engagement survey, we can't actually draw any solid correlation between the two for that. So that would be an area for further research down the line. So then, on the basis of those conclusions, a couple of recommendations came about. First of all, the nature of the study was, as a general idea, was there an advantage to our partnership between GMIT and BFK? We're actually the first European college to undergo a partnership with BFK, so it's something we're very happy with, and we can definitely say yes, there was definite benefits to both ourselves as an institute and to our students out on placement to the partnership. So on the back of that then, we're looking then next year to expand the BFK modules into school placement modules for both third and fourth year, and to have a general introduction to the BFK strategies back as far as second year. So just for clarification, third and fourth year are the years where our students will go out on an extended school placement. So that's the reason why those 2 years will be the most fitting for implementing the actual FIP modules. And lastly then, the implementation of the BFK student engagement surveys, so in school placement for the next action research cycle. So we said that was an area which the difficulties were encountered, so it's an area where we're going to have to just troubleshoot and see if we can get around it to be able to kind of establish this link between does it actually help the students improve their learning. So there's just a couple of the recommendations off the back of the survey itself. So our last then thing we're going to do is just a brief interactive exchange, and it's simple exchange. It's just basically a visualization exercise just to help teachers get a better idea of, I suppose, the FIP strategies and how they could be used within the classroom. So it's very, very straightforward idea. The idea is just to basically close your eyes, and I want you just to think back. So you're in a classroom, but you're not in front of the classroom. You're a student sitting down in the classroom. So you just imagine yourself sitting in your chair and just looking around. Look at the students to your left, look at the students to your right, and I just want you to concentrate on yourself for a second and just imagine you have a feeling of anxiety about the class. Let's say maybe the previous lesson hasn't gone that well. Let's say you might have had difficulty with your homework. Let's say the teacher is explaining what the aims for the lesson are, and you're not entirely sure what you have to do. So you have an anxiety at your stomach. So you're worried about your ability to succeed in that class. Now, with that in mind, with that feeling of anxiety, the question is, what can the teacher do to alleviate that? What can they do to bring hope into your classroom experience? So, and that's it. So what I'd like to do is just to break up into groups of 2s and 3s, and just for 5 minutes, just have a discussion on what are simple, immediate strategies that the teacher can actually do there and then to alleviate that stress or that anxiety and to instill hope within the classroom. So that's the exchange itself, and then we'll discuss some of those strategies. So that's the end of the presentation here. So I'd just like to thank everyone, and if you have any questions, I'm sure you can add them to the comment box. So just there's our references, and I'd just like to thank you for listening. So thank you very much.